the most volatile debates in this new global energy landscape.
Absolutely.
We're talking about the tension between just unprecedented oil wealth on one hand and deep entrenched poverty on the other.
And we're zeroing in on Guyana, a nation that's seeing this staggering economic boom.
Right, a boom that is almost hard to comprehend, but at the same time, you have the reality that over half its population is still living in hardship.
That contrast is the core conflict here. A nation suddenly flush with all this resource wealth, while so many of its people are struggling just to afford food.
And what's really sparked this latest firestorm is a critique from Azruddin Mohammed.
Yes, he took direct aim at some alleged comments made by President Erdogan during a formal dinner. And the core of his argument is that the leadership is showing just a severe lack of respect for the dignity of the nation's poor.
Okay, let's unpack this. Our mission today is to analyze Mohammed's critique, but not just as, political sparring.
Right, it's bigger than that.
This is really about a fundamental debate over economic philosophy and maybe even moral authority.
Exactly. We're dissecting the core argument. Should this incredible oil revenue be channeled into these big centralized development projects run by the government?
Or should a portion of it be shared directly with citizens, especially those living below the poverty line, through cash grants?
It's a classic policy choice,
Yeah.
immediate relief versus future investment. But here, it is just infused with the raw pain of extreme inequality.
So we're digging into Mohammed's analysis of the president's remarks, which basically question whether Guyanese people are too focused on short-term cash to appreciate long-term development.
Right.
What stands out first is the specific moment, the flashpoint that really ignited this whole thing. The scene itself is just crucial.
That scene was the Oil and Gas Awards dinner,
Hmm.
a very glittery, high-profile gathering at the opulent Marriott Hotel.
So not a small affair.
No, not at all. It
Yeah.
was, as the source describes it, a room packed with the fancy people.
The elites.
The elites, the key players who are benefiting most directly from this massive new economic landscape in Guyana.
And according to Mohammed, this is where President Irfan allegedly made the remark that became a point of national outrage.
That's right. The specific quote that's attributed to him was, "You really don't know Guyanese people instead of development." I might have to say cash grant.
And he said it again?
Apparently, yes. Followed by a reiteration and something like, "I may need to say cash grant."
Wow.
And the reaction to this, according to Mohammed, that's the real heart of the controversy.
What did he say happened?
He states that the entire room, this room full of high society attendees, responded with a roar of laughter.
A roar of laughter.
Yes, and that laughter, coming from the most privileged people in the nation, is what Mohammed says hurt to the core,
I can imagine.
because it was immediately seen as disrespecting the people of this country, especially the poor people. The implication was pretty clear.
That the people were being mocked.
Mocked for prioritizing their immediate survival over these, abstract promises of future development.
That laughter just instantly highlights this profound class divide. It's one of those things it's truly difficult to comprehend if you're outside the country.
It really is.
We are talking about a joke made at the expense of a population where, what's the data point again?
More than 50%.
More than 50% live in poverty. You have to understand the sheer scale of the need here.
And the source material, it just drives this contrast home with devastating detail. It creates such a powerful visual.
Tell me.
You've got those people in the Marriott being served the finest meals prepared by gourmet chefs.
The elites celebrating their new wealth.
Exactly. And then you have the reality for the majority of the population who, as the source says, have to eat watery cook-up without meat and greens, maybe once a week because they cannot afford it.
That's not just an economic statistic.
No, it's a visceral, emotional reality.
And the implication of that joke and then the laughter that followed, according to Mohammed, it's just devastatingly clear.
He really frames it as a direct question.
He poses the direct analytical question, does this behavior suggest the poor are considered lesser humans? That their lives, their struggles, their needs are somehow worth less than the comfort of the elites at the Marriott?
And that's what transforms this from, just political gossip into a major moral confrontation.
Absolutely. That perceived slight against the dignity of the poor is the emotional fuel for this whole critique.
It is. But now we have to pivot a bit to the economic reality, because this debate is fundamentally about policy priorities and the massive choices facing the People's Progressive Party, the PPP,
The party in power.
the party in power. And their alleged position seems to be framing these cash grants as, well, as just a simplistic handout.
Right. An easy, kind of short-sighted alternative to the difficult, serious work of national development.
It subtly implies that the poor are making a less sophisticated or maybe even a selfish choice.
But what do we even mean by development in this context? When the PPP talks about development, what are they talking about?
Typically, they're prioritizing massive centralized infrastructure projects. Think deep water ports, new highways, major investments in the power grid, large-scale hospitals.
So big, long-term project.
Very long-term. Projects with long timelines promising future economic growth and diversification.
Versus the cash grant, which is immediate. It's tangible relief right now.
And Muhammad, he just vehemently refutes this whole characterization of cash grants as begging.
He pushes back hard on that.
Very hard. On the idea that Guyanese are begging for handouts, he argues the PPP is trying to control the narrative to make it seem like people are begging.
When in reality,
In reality, he says, the citizens are demanding a distribution of wealth that their people help generate from their own national resources.
and this brings us to a really crucial part of the political strategy, right?
It does. Muhammad raises a specific political claim. He asserts that the people actually never asked for a previous Christmas cash grant that was distributed.
So where did it come from?
He claims the president lied to them about a cash grant and tricked them into voting for the PPP.
So he's saying the government is using the promise of grants as a political tool.
Precisely. Which, if true, really undermines their later argument that grants are some kind of poor policy choice.
And this is where the critical thinking for you listening comes in. If we look at the pure economics of it, there are real trade-offs here.
Of course.
Centralized development offers the promise of, long-term infrastructure, sustainable growth, but in a nation with high perceived governance risks.
Meaning the potential for misallocation or just outright corruption.
Exactly. There's just no guarantee that benefit ever trickles down to the people who need it.
And that's the risk. On the other hand, the immediate tangible impact of direct distribution. It guarantees that funds reach that high poverty population instantly. It improves consumption and potentially dignity.
But there's a counter-argument to that too, and it's a big one.
A very significant one. If you flood a small, non-diversified economy like Guyana's with massive immediate cash grants, don't you inherently risk driving up inflation?
The classic symptom of Dutch disease.
That's the one. And inflation makes basic goods, especially food, things not related to oil, even less accessible for the majority of people who are not in the oil sector.
So it could unintentionally make the gap even wider.
It could. The gap between the rising cost of living and stagnant wages could just grow. So you're right, we're talking about two very difficult policy choices, and both have major risks.
This is where it gets, I think, really interesting, because Muhammad then shifts the conversation to the global context. He's effectively arguing this isn't some complex, unique Guyanese problem.
He's basically saying it's a solved problem, that the administration is acting as if direct distribution is some kind of fringe, radical idea.
And that's such a powerful strategic move. He explains that sharing resource wealth directly with citizens is, in his words, standard practice in resource-rich nations all around the world.
It provides political stability, it increases the legitimacy of the government, and it immediately raises the standard of living.
And the source gives us a crystal clear list of examples, precedents that you really need to know.
And we're not talking about small or unstable economies here. We're talking about globally established, wealthy states.
Right.
The list includes Alaska in the United States, which has the permanent fund dividend.
Right.
Norway, which is often held up as the gold standard for resource management.
Of course. And then there are the Middle Eastern oil giants.
Kuwait, the United Arab Emirates, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, all of them do this in some form.
So when you list out these specific established examples, it just instantly undercuts the government's alleged position that cash grants are crude or unsophisticated.
Exactly. If nations like Norway, known for its strategic wealth management, and a U.S. state like Alaska, with its very conservative fiscal culture, if they could successfully do this, then it's clearly a legitimate policy tool.
A standard part of resource wealth management.
And if you look at a model like the Alaska Permanent Fund Dividend, it's structured to give a share of the resource revenue directly to residents every year.
What does that do for the economy there?
It stabilizes consumption, for one.
Yeah.
And crucially, it gives citizens a tangible stake in their national wealth that increases public acceptance of the whole resource extraction process.
And the fund itself probably protects the money from politicians.
It does. It provides a layer of protection against them just spending it on pet projects or, corruption.
When you contrast the immense wealth of a place like Norway or Kuwait with the population size and poverty level of Guyana, the expectation of direct sharing, it becomes a political tool.
It does. And the implication Mohammed highlights is this. If sharing resource wealth is standard practice everywhere else, why is the current administration allegedly trying to hide this knowledge or frame it so negatively?
He suggests a reason.
He suggests that framing direct sharing as unsophisticated is a way to keep the people down. It allows the ruling party, the PPP, to keep central control over this colossal revenue stream. And that control lets them direct funds to those big, expensive infrastructure projects we mentioned.
Ish while necessary.
While necessary, also present far more opportunities for patronage and have much less accountability than just paying millions of citizens directly.
So the strategic choice for you, the listener, it boils down to more than just cash versus development.
It really becomes a critical debate about who controls the money.
Is it centrally controlled by the political class for these huge, maybe distant projects? Or is a guaranteed percentage just immediately decentralized to the people, improving their immediate dignity?
Precisely. And that brings us right back to the ethical component, to the moral authority of leadership in a time of such extreme wealth disparity,
Because the economic arguments only work if people trust the leadership.
and if they feel respected by them.
And Mohammed is highly critical of the president's conduct towards the poor. He details this public perception of hypocrisy.
He talks about the behavior of, walking into poor communities, hugging people, this physical outreach.
While thinking less of them, is the quote, and then going back to the fancy people to joke about them.
And this is where Muhammad pivots again to ground his argument in these foundational moral and ethical principles.
He uses religious and philosophical texts.
Yes, to establish that respect for the vulnerable isn't just a political expectation. It's a deep moral requirement for anyone in power.
He references the Quran.
Reminding the listener to in no way commit the property of the poor and needy, which speaks directly to protecting the security and dignity of the most vulnerable. It's a direct rebuke to mocking their needs.
Then he brings in the Bible.
Citing Proverbs 19.17, which says, "Whoever is kind to the poor lends to the Lord." This frames kindness not as charity, but as a sacred duty,
And finally, the Bhagavad Gita.
which notes that the truly wise perform actions for the welfare of all beings without attachment. This elevates the leader's role, suggesting their primary duty is to serve all citizens impartially, especially those most in need, not to cater to the amusement of the elite.
These references, they really reinforce the core demand of the whole critique.
Which is that dignity is not a luxury.
Respect is not for the rich alone.
And using these texts, it shows Muhammad is trying to shift the debate away from just policy preferences and toward the character, the moral integrity of the leadership itself.
That emotional framework is so effective because it connects this abstract policy debate about oil funds to the immediate, tangible needs of the people. It makes the discussion about money feel incredibly personal.
So this deep dive really shows us that the critique leveled by Muhammad is this powerful twofold challenge that goes way beyond a single joke at a dinner.
It's a challenge to the economic policy, for sure.
Arguing that direct wealth sharing isn't just standard international practice, but a critical tool for stability and trust.
And it's also a fundamental challenge to the moral contract between the government and the governed. It's demanding that respect for the poor has to be paramount, especially when you're making decisions that affect their actual survival.
And the source material leaves us with a truly powerful quote. It was left by a citizen under the video of the event, and it serves as a final, humbling thought for us and for you.
What does it say?
Life is easy when you're up on the mountain and you have got peace of mind like you have never known. But things change when you're down in the valley for a minute. And remember that air was once in the valley and might end up right back there.
Wow. That's a universal reminder, isn't it, about the fragility of status, the common experience of hardship.
It applies not just to the political leaders, but to everyone in that gilded room. So given the stark reality of that 50% poverty rate and all the global precedents we talked about, Alaska, Norway, Kuwait, the crucial question for you to explore is this. In a country suddenly flush with massive resource wealth, Should the focus be on central government control of future promises that carry huge corruption risk?
Or should it be on immediate dignity and stability through a publicly owned shared wealth distribution mechanism? Something for you to mull over on your own.